this episode of Spin to Knit, I will be making the Nightshift, which is the shawl version of the shifted pattern. It's using, I think, worsted weight yarn, and obviously I will be spinning to make the yarns that we're going to be using in it. I have knit this before. I have also knit the shifted. It's knit with mosaic colourwork techniques, which I find really nice to knit. And I've been wanting to spin intentionally for a version of this for me for quite a while. So I have been curating fibres for this pattern. And I think I have my final selection here. This is a fibre I dyed. I don't know how much really you can see. It is a merino humbug fibre, and it's sort of goes burgundies, yellows and reds. And because it is this humbug fibre, we will get bits where it is dark and bits where it is light. This is one of my favourite fibres, is this humbug fibre. So yeah, so that's one that I dyed. This one I got from Yarndale 2021. It's got some gold attached. That was probably the label. I've lost the label. I will put on the screen who the dyer of this fibre is. I think it was a similar merino base. It might be Falkland, because I do like Falkland and I'm drawn to that quite a bit. And it's very much paler, earthy tones. And then my final braid I picked up from Furbeck Fibres. Really like this dyer of fibres, and this is a Polworth, and it's a dark rainbow, and yeah, it's beautiful. So this one has colours from both of those in, but in longer gradients, so I think this is going to work pretty well as our 3 fibres. Sorry, Andrea. Now the plan for spinning is that I'm going to break each of the fibres down and I'm going to spin the whole braid of each one individually. I want some areas where the colours will match and some areas where they will barber pole. So I'm probably going to do a fractal spin with these. Let's have a look at the pattern and see. Let's not go too far because we don't want to give away any of the secret sauce, but we do want to see what type of yarn we want. So the suggested yarn is spin cycle yarn, which is a dyed in the wool yarn and then mill spun, so it does give you that effect of a hand spun yarn. So I think this would be perfect for hand spun. And we're using a 5mm needle. I think it probably will give us a gauge. But yeah, I mean, I can pretty much tell from 5mm needle that we are looking at a DK worsted weight yarn. I don't know what the weight of Dream State is. So yeah, so we are looking at a worsted weight yarn. So I'm going to have to spin slightly thicker than my average. Okay, so if we're going to have a 3 ply, I ideally need to split it into 3. I'm just going to weigh that fibre braid now that I've split it into 3, just to make sure that all the pieces are as even as possible. Where they're not even, we'll have to break it down a little bit more to make them as even as possible. So yeah, so some of these are coming up heavier than others, but I can work around that. Okay, so this is the finished fibre prep. So I've got 1/3 which is intact, and then the second third I've split into 2, and then the final third I've broken into smaller pieces. It should be about four pieces. So now I'm just going to repeat that process with the other 2 braids, and then we can get to spinning. So for this spin for the night shift, I want her on a medium whirl, which is actually already on, and I only have 1 ratio on the wheel. I'm going to go for a fairly natural spin because it doesn't really matter too much what I end up with, as long as it's sort of in between spot DK to worsted, which is pretty much my standard spin anyway. And we're going for a 3-ply, so we're going to go with that. But yeah, I'll just feed in my leader. I'm going to start by spinning the finest bits. And I think what I've decided to do is I'm going to do a continuous spin with this. So I'm going to spin all the colours on top of each other. The only other thing that I need to think about is my breakband. I don't want a lot of tension on there to start with. I don't want it being pulled out of my hand. And yeah, I'll just see how we go, and then I'll do a ply back test. This is spinning like butter. As I say, it's as smooth as silk. It's beautiful. I really enjoy spinning Polworth. That's quite a recent discovery. Yeah, I could make this go so fine, but it's quite happy at this, which I think will be perfect. Card for doing a ply back test, and this is going to be a 3-ply. Do you want to come out? You want to come back out? I'm just going to pull back a little bit, and because it's a 3-ply, I'm going to act like I am chain plying it, so that I've got all 3 together, and let it go. Looks like it could do with a little bit extra twist in there. And maybe draft a little bit more. Oh no, I think we're doing okay actually on that. It's always a little bit more difficult to test a 3-ply on a ply back test. But yeah, I think I'm happy with where we are with that. If I could show you, we're getting between about a 14 and an 11. And that could even go up to a 9 once it's washed. So, wind you back on. 3 bobbins done. So that's the finished spin. Got to leave the last one overnight now, just to let it rest, because the others obviously have had a bit longer to rest. And I can ply these tomorrow. I'm so looking forward to seeing how they ply up and how the colours blend together. So you can't really tell, but this was the this is the bobbin which has the longest colour repeats on, and this is the bobbin with the middle, and this is the bobbin with the shortest repeats on. I think it's easiest to tell this shortest bobbin apart, and obviously all 3 braids are on here. It's just this pale blue one is the one that I finished with. So when I finish plying these, I will have 3 skeins of 3-ply yarn ready to start my Nightshift shawl, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait to cast it on. I cannot wait to ply it. Yeah, I have to be very patient. I'm going to have to go and find another spinning project to play with while I wait overnight to start plying these. Aren't they pretty? Time to ply. Don't know what you can see. So yeah, time to ply these 3. The Ashford Traditional has a built-in lazy cake. However, it's made for the smaller bobbins. So these are the bobbins that you're supposed to use with the Ashford Traveller. I use the larger bobbins that actually go with the Kiwi. So I can't fit 3 on. And yeah, they're not gonna. So what I can do is put one there, and then I can use my separate lazy cake, which is this one. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and they should all fit quite nicely. Let's get comfy. Okay, I like to have them all coming around the back of the bobbin. I don't think that sort of does anything, and I just hold them between my fingers. It becomes quite comfortable as I'm plying. I'll check in a minute. Probably going to need a little bit more attention this time. yarn is all nice and dry. It dried overnight. It is all plumped up somewhat. This Humbug one has plumped up the least, and the Polworth has plumped up the most. This is absolutely beautiful. It is so round and bouncy. It's just, oh, cannot wait to use it. And this was the Felt Studio one, which was also plumped up really nicely. It's got some uneven bits, you could probably just see there, but that will just add texture in this shawl, so I'm not worried about that at all. So yeah, I'm excited to get these caked up and cast on. Now, yesterday I looked at the pattern. This is the Nightshift pattern by Andrea Mowery, which we're going to be knitting, and I just wanted to check how I was doing with yardage. So that's all we're going to look at on here. So this pattern calls for 6 colours of worsted weight yarn. We have worsted weight yarn, and 150 yards of each. Now I managed to get 250 of this dark blue, nearly 300 of the reddy yellow, and another 250 of the light blue. So that at best gives me 800. So I'm 100 yards short. So it could just be that we go with these colours and I make a smaller shawl, or I could pull something from my handspun stash and add it in. So cast on, and it's just a 6 stitch to cast on, and Jax, it's going to be here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, from small beginnings, our big shawl will grow. So I'm going to go downstairs and sit and watch something and just enjoy knitting this for a little bit, and I'll show you when I've got a bit of progress. So that's the set of browns done in the first colours, and it's time to start doing the mosaic knitting in colour 2. And I think I'll probably just insert a little bit about mosaic knitting here so that you can have an idea of how to do it if you've never done it before. So I just thought I'd do a little brief overview on mosaic knitting. Mosaic knitting is a way of doing colour work without holding 2 yarns at the same time. You work each yarn, each colour individually, and on some rows you would slip stitches, and on some rows you just knit all the stitches. And what you do is you get this effect where you have colour work, and it's really lovely. In this instance I'm just doing a 1x1 mosaic stitch, and it gives you a really nice textured finish, but mosaic can be used for all sorts of different designs. I shall put some examples on the screen. Yeah, it's a really useful stitch to learn. If you've never tried it, I suggest giving it a go. So I'm just going to show you briefly how we go about it. So I've just done the lighter blue, which is our background colour in this instinct. So I'm just going to work a row of slip stitches. I'm just going to knit 2 to start us off. And this is my first stitch. And then I'm going to slip the next one and knit, and slip and knit, slip and knit, and just repeat that to the end. Slip and knit. It becomes very, you get into a really lovely rhythm with the slipping and the knitting. Slip and knit, slip and knit, and slip, and I'm just going to knit the last 3. So that's the lovely easy row. On the way back it gets a little bit more complicated, but not much. I'm just going to knit the first 3 stitches. And when we come to our slip stitch here, all we're going to do is bring the yarn to the front and slip it again, and then bring the yarn to the back, because if you slipped it with the yarn the other way, it would cover the stitch. So then we knit that stitch, yarn to the back, yarn to the front, knit that one. So we're knitting all the stitches we knitted on the last round and slipping all the stitches that we slipped on the last round, but we're keeping the yarn to the back of the work when we slip the stitches so that it doesn't show on the front. And again, you're getting a nice rhythm. It's very similar rhythm to doing like a slip stitch heel on a sock, or working in brioche, or even like a 1x1 rib if you knit English style. Okay, so that's the first 2 rows of a sort of traditional mosaic stitch, and for the next 2 rows we're going to use our background colour, and this is very simple because we're just going to knit straight across all of the stitches. So, and this is almost like our framing colour. If you've never done mosaic before, it's a good idea to use yarns that have a very high contrast so you can see which stitch you are knitting and which stitch you are slipping. And then for the final row, I'm just going to knit the first 2 stitches to keep my edges tidy, and then I'm just going to be purling because I'm working flat. If I was working in the round, I would be knitting this row as well. And just knit those last 2 stitches. But yeah, that is the mosaic stitch. It is a beautiful stitch, and there are lots of beautiful patterns out there, so I suggest going to find one and give it a try. That is section 1. So now I'm going to change colour 2 to colour 3, but the background colour stays the same. And pretty much we're just repeating what we've done. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Longer. I've done 7 repeats so far. So for the pattern I've got another 3 to go. I am running low on yarn. Yeah. So the next repeat will be with this as the main colour and this as the contrast. I think there's only enough of this one left to be a contrast for a repeat. I can't get another background up. I'm hoping to be able to get another background out of this one, and then I should get 9 pattern repeats, not the full 10. But yeah, I think I'd really be pushing it to get a 10. But we shall go. I'm kind of just winging it as for colours and where they're going, and just trying to keep the yarns as even as possible. Keep weighing. It's done. Well, I still have the I-cord bind off to do, but there is no more eking this yarn out. I have... Oh, I'm sat on one. I've run out of 2 of the original colours, and that's all I have left of the gold, and this is the additional colour that I brought in, and I'm hoping I'll be able to eke out the I-cord bind off out of this. If not, if I run out of one of these... Oh, hang on. Shadows. I have this one. Doesn't really go, but it is a handspun that I can always just put in for that last bit of I-cord. No one will mind, no one will notice. There is quite a bit of blue in here. It's a more sort of tealy blue than this sort of denim blue, but it's there as a backup because I am playing the biggest game of yarn chicken at the moment. time to wrap up this episode of Spin to Knit. I really hope you've enjoyed it. I have enjoyed the whole process of this episode. From the spin, it was one of the most enjoyable spins I've ever done, especially the Polworth. Oh, that was a treat. Watching the colours and the way they blended together when I plied it, it was just so beautiful. To then being able to knit with this yarn that I'd created and make possibly one of the most beautiful shawls I think I've ever owned. I'm just so in love with this. It's the colours have merged together and it's sort of like a sort of vintage tapestry type colour palette. I don't know if that's going to come across well on camera, hopefully. Yeah, this shift patterns by Andrea Mowery. There's a range of patterns. There's a hat if you don't want to go so far as to do a shawl or the cowl. There's a sweater that's just been updated that I'm really tempted to do for a future episode. Please leave me a comment if you'd like to see that for a future episode. But yeah, if you haven't tried these patterns, I would really suggest giving Mosaic knitting a go. It really is relaxing and fun, and once you get into the rhythm of it, it's as mindless as stocking stitch, and just as easy to watch telly and knit. It's just, yeah, really one of my favourite ways of making a textured colourwork pattern. But yeah, I could go on about this shawl for absolutely ages, and if you watch the podcast I probably will be doing quite a bit more over there. It's beautiful. I will take it off and show you in all its glory. Again, just to speak about the yarn and the spin, I used Polworth and Merino fibres, and what I've got after blocking is a really soft, warm, squishy, or I wish you could feel it, it's so squishy, and that is the texture of the pattern as well, but oh, it's just so bouncy and oh, but yeah, it has this beautiful drape to it. So yeah, this is the finished shawl. Hopefully I can get it all in camera. I'll try and take some pictures of me wearing it. Pooks. The colours blended together perfectly. Another little bit of advice, if you want to make one of these shawls and you want to spin for one of these shawls, I would possibly suggest doing 400-gram braids of fibre rather than the 3 that I did, because I did run out of yarn. And for the last third of this knit, I was worried about running out of yarn, and it kind of took some of the enjoyment out of the knit, but not completely. But yeah, if I made this again, I would do 4 braids and make 4 different yards. And when it comes to picking braids, I would suggest finding braids that each of them have one colour from the other. So in this one I had the mustard gold colour which ran through all 3 braids, and I mean you'll have seen from the beginning that those braids look nothing alike, but they had a similar sort of muted tone, and I think the finished shawl just is so beautiful. So yeah, if you are thinking of making one yourself, I would recommend spinning 4 braids, just so that you don't have that worry about running out. Or indeed you could spin 6 50-gram braids if you have like half braids that you want to use up, and use the colour play, the colour sort of template that Andrea Mowery gives you in the pattern. That would be really fun to do. I kind of winged it when it came to colour placement. I just tried to keep them as even as possible. I'm really pleased with how the colour placement played out. It also smells divine. It's that slightly sheepy but lovely fresh washed smell. Oh, it's so lovely. So yeah, I will stop going on about it. So yeah, I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. I really enjoy making these episodes. I enjoy the fact that it challenges me to spin out of my comfort zone slightly, and I'm really looking forward to making more episodes. If you might be able to get a sneak peek of one if you can see my kiwi in front of me. I'm not sure what the camera can see, but yeah, so if you have enjoyed this episode, please do leave me a comment and let me know what part you enjoyed. Are you here for the spinning? Are you here for the knitting? Or do you just like the whole process? Yeah, please also give this episode a thumbs up and tell me that you've liked it, and by doing that it also tells YouTube that you like this, and so other people who like the similar stuff to you may like this too, and it just brings it out to a wider audience. These episodes do take a long time to make, so I really do appreciate all the support that you give me and cheering me on, because sometimes it's just me on my own spinning, and getting those likes really does help. So the next episode will be out at the end of March. I'm not 100% sure what it's going to be. There's 2 spins on the go for episodes at the moment, so it's going to be one of them. I would like it to be the one using my little electric eel wheel nano. I think that might be quite good fun. If you're just here for the Spin to Knit videos, I will see you next month. But if you're here and you enjoy the podcast as well, I'll see you next week. Goodbye, my friends.